there are at least 3 new countries in which there are significant protests against our embassies: in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Indonesia. I can't believe how worked up they are in Jakarta over this. Now, they don't represent the whole country, but there are significant protests in these places. Police cars have been set on fire. Some of our embassies have been attacked. Some of the protesters have been killed because there's been clashes with police. And some are calling for the arrest of the filmmaker. And they say if they don't arrest the filmmaker, these protests will continue. But that's just not how our government works. That's not how our system works. In Jakarta, in Indonesia, they're saying they will continue the protests until our ambassadors are expelled. But this movie has nothing to do with our government. That's just not how it works. And then, as you can see, of course, Newsweek now has a new controversial picture and headline saying Muslim rage. Now, is that fair or unfair? Well, we'll give you both sides. First of all, let me tell you what some of the protesters in Pakistan are saying. Quote, production crew of the video, I should say, must be hanged to set an example. Now, that's Hafiz Muhammad Saeed, and he is a radical Muslim cleric, so it's not like he speaks for all the people in Pakistan, but obviously there's a lot of protesters who are following him there, and he's the leader of that particular movement in that particular city. And here's another protester in Lahore, Pakistan, saying, Obama, we are all Osama. That is not a good sign. A placard at a protest in Lahore also says, blasphemy is not freedom of expression, and its sentence is death. Well, maybe that's your view of it. That's certainly not our view of it here. And the idea that you would kill someone for not agreeing with your religion is about as antithetical to the American idea as you could possibly imagine. And honestly, I can give a rat's ass what a guy in Pakistan thinks we should do about freedom of speech in America. Oh, you think we should execute people if they don't agree with your ass in Pakistan? Wow, okay. I'll take it under advisement. Now, at the same time, there are people that are going way too far with this and smearing all Muslims with it. In fact, the person who wrote the Newsweek story is a person named Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who I agree with in a lot of ways. But here she said one thing in the article that I totally disagree with. She said, quote, the Muslim men and women who support, whether actively or passively, the idea that blasphemers deserve to suffer punishment are not a fringe group. On the contrary, they represent the mainstream of contemporary Islam. Now, I don't know what conditions that she grew up in, and I do know to some degree she suffered greatly in Somalia. There was supposed to be an arranged marriage. She ran away from that. She was called a blasphemer by some in the Muslim world and had to go in hiding at different times in her life and had to take tremendous precautions. And I feel significantly for her in that. And there's a lot in the article that I agree with. And I think this idea that, oh, it's blasphemy, etc., as you just heard me say, is outrageous that you would take some sort of physical action against someone for disagreeing with you. At the same time, in the Muslim culture that I grew up in, and understand I'm no longer Muslim, but most of my family obviously is, they're not in a rage. They don't think people who left the religion should be executed. I left the religion. My family certainly doesn't think I should be executed, nor does anyone I know in Turkey, for example. So understand that there are different cultures within the Islamic world. And even within the countries that are protesting, there are several hundred protesters. In some of the bigger ones, there are several thousand protesters. But for example, in Indonesia, there's 125 million people. In Pakistan, you also have at least 80 million. So these are giant countries, and these couple of hundred or a couple of thousand protesters don't represent everyone, as much as I completely disagree with those protesters. Now, if you think Ali went too far, wait till you get a load of Joe Scarborough. Watch him on Morning Joe.
They hate us because of their religion. They hate us because of their culture, and they hate us because of peer pressure. Think about the savagery, just the sheer, unrestrained savagery that we have seen across the Middle East and the Arab world over the past week because of a crude film. They know what they're doing. They know it's a crude film. They know it has nothing to do with the United States government. It is an excuse.
they hate us because of their culture. Now, he's not talking about fundamentalist culture. If he was, then that would be an interesting point to make. But then, of course, he'd have to talk about fundamentalists here in the U.S. as well. And they love the fundamentalists here in the U.S. So they're not going to paint it that way. He's going to paint it as culture of all Muslims and talking about savagery in that regard. That is unacceptable. If you think that's bad, it gets worse.
One intelligence person told me, if you scratch the surface, and if you gave every street vendor, from street vendor to prime minister in that region, a chance to throw a rock at the U.S. Embassy, they would. They hate us because of waterboarding. No, they don't. They hate us because they hate us. They hate us because of Obama's drone attacks. No, they don't. They hate us because they hate us. They hate us because somebody burned a Quran. No, they don't. They hate us because they hate us. They hate us because of this crude film. No, they don't. They hate us because they hate us. And any U.S. politician that thinks they're going to go in and transform the region and stop people from hating us because they hate us are absolute fools. They're absolute fools.
Funny that he would be calling anyone a fool. Now, Joe Scarborough has said a lot of stupid things in his life, but I'm not sure I've ever seen anything that stupid. They hate us because they hate us? That's it? That's all you got? What a unbelievably ignorant thing to say. People don't just wake up in the morning and go, hey, you know what? God, I hate Americans. Now, if he had said, look, they might be resentful given their economic situation, and that's one of the factors, that's a legitimate point to have a discussion over. But to say they hate us because they hate us, but why? Why do they hate us? Do you have any sense in your head there, in your block of a head? No, it's because of actions that have been taken. Now, you might say, hey, we had to take those actions. Now, I might agree with you in some instances, and I would certainly disagree with you in some instances. But it's obviously because of the actions, whether it's the Iraq War, and yes, because of drone strikes that killed sometimes their family. Now, if somebody kills your family with a drone strike, you think they hate you just because they hate you? Or they hate you because you killed their aunt, their uncle, and their kids? Come on, Joe, how stupid are you? To talk about Muslim fundamentalists not understanding this country and being full of rage, that's a legitimate point. And I actually don't think that the Newsweek cover is altogether that off. Those people are in a rage, they are angry, and they are Muslim. But then to generalize, as Joe Scarborough is doing, and to say it's all Muslims and they hate us because they hate us, well, that's just one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. By the way, let's look at the numbers. Is that even really true? You know, in eastern Libya, our approval rating is 60%. Now, that's where our ambassador got killed. In Israel, it's only 55%. So where our ambassador got killed, we're actually more popular than we are in Israel. In all of Libya, it's 54%, almost identical to Israel. In Algeria, it's 37%. That's not good. In Iran, it's down to 9%. Now, gee, I wonder why we're not altogether that popular in Iran. Actually, we should be. Iran has a huge democratic movement. A lot of the younger people in Iran believe in our ideas about human rights, democracy, etc. Why are we unpopular? Could it have something to do with the fact that we threaten to invade them and to attack them and bomb them on a daily basis? No, they probably hate us because they hate us.